Welcome to One Stop News. I'm Michael Rummel. Today's March 19th, and I've got several stories for you today, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump in. The first is the election in the Netherlands. The center-right party, led by Mark Rutte, who's the current prime minister, has defeated the Dutch Freedom Party, led by Geert Wilders, in getting the most seats. Geert Wilders' Dutch Freedom Party is more of a far-right populist party, similar to the British Independence Party and similar to Trump's movement in the United States. And this election was seen as kind of a test to see how far that style of politics could go in Europe. This is seen as a big victory in Europe as a victory for establishment politics and for people on the center, as the the People's Party for Freedom and Democracy came out farther ahead than anticipated. Now, this does not mean that this style of politics is over, and we'll see it much more on stage in the French election with Marine Le Pen versus Emmanuel Macron. So in the Netherlands, Mark Rutte is now going to have to find his coalition. So Geert Wilders could still prove an effective opponent for the opposition government. So we'll see how that happens, and if anything important happens on that, of course, I will make sure to keep all of you informed. Now, the second big story of the day is the British Parliament has formally passed a bill that will allow Prime Minister Theresa May to begin the negotiations on Brexit with the European Union. This is contentious in a lot of ways, and the real, fun of this is about to begin. The negotiations are probably going to be tough on Britain, as Germany and France are going to want to hold their feet to the fire in a lot of ways over Brexit. Now, what the details are going to be at the end of it and how the negotiations are going to go are, of course, yet to be seen, and I'm sure I'll report on that plenty in the coming months. But honestly, kind of a bigger story coming out of Britain is that Nicola Sturgeon, the leader of the Scottish National Party, has called for a second referendum for Scottish independence. Now, this could be huge. The first Scottish referendum failed largely because of the EU. A lot of people in Scotland wanted to stay in the EU, wanted to stay in Britain, so they decided to stay with Britain to keep in the EU. With Britain leaving the EU, this could prove a big swing in the vote. Now, this referendum falling so closely after the first one may make it more difficult to actually get the turnout they want to get Scottish independence. But regardless, this is a huge development, and if this referendum is approved by the needed parties, we could see a possible breakaway for Scotland. In France, a man was killed by security services after putting a gun to a soldier's head. It was a pellet gun, and saying, "I want to die for Allah." This comes after he also reached for the officer's gun, but he was shot dead by security forces. This comes after he had fired a pellet gun at a police stop after being stopped in traffic and stealing a woman's car by pointing the pellet gun at her head. Now, it's unclear how connected he is to terrorist organizations, and his father even said that he does not pray and he drinks, kind of implying that he really isn't a Muslim in any sort of way. However, there is an investigation going on by French services to see if he's connected to radical Islamic elements in the country, as there are reports that he had some contacts in that world. So more to follow as that investigation plays out. In Peru, over 70 have died from heavy flooding as the country is experiencing some of the most torrential rain it has seen in decades. The security services now have the situation largely under control, but more could follow as the forecast is predicting unstable weather patterns for the next few weeks. So hopefully they can be better prepared for the next few possible storms that come their way. In Afghanistan, a brutal attack on a military hospital has left at least 50 dead and 31 more injured by government estimates. Eyewitness reports and other accounts have put the number far higher, but there is no exact amount. This current number was just raised recently to this number, so it could raise even higher, and this is one of the biggest tragedies that's hit Afghanistan recently. The hospital was a military hospital in Kabul, near the U.S. Embassy and near the NATO headquarters. It was a heavily fortified hospital, which has brought a lot of concern from Afghanis, especially in Kabul, over how effective the government is doing in its war against the Taliban and in stabilizing the country. It's brought a lot of pressure on Parliament, and people are now investigating how this happened. Reports are conflicted on what actually happened in the hospital. There's some saying that there was gunfire before the explosion at the gate. There's some saying that it was just an explosion at the gate that allowed them to come in. There are possible reports that they had people on the inside who let them in. So the Afghani Defense Ministry is currently investigating this, and we'll find out more soon on what has actually happened, and I'll make sure to give y'all the update, as this is a huge development, and hopefully they can find exactly who did it. The ISIS has claimed it, but security experts and people who were there say it was likely the Taliban who did it. And now the final story on the international side of things for today. The UN has published a report calling Israeli practices against Palestinians a form of apartheid. This is a pretty serious declaration, but it does come on a report and not from a UN declaration from the Secretary General or anything like that. So it's still important, but it's not super major. This report has led to the predictable responses from both camps. Palestinian supporters and Palestinians feel vindicated by this. They feel it's accurate. Israel and Israeli supporters feel like it's just more of the UN just attacking Israel and being very pro-Palestinian. This report likely isn't going to do much, to be totally honest. It's really only going to further inflame the tensions between both sides, which are very high right now and could lead... There are reports and there are rumors that there might be a third intifada in the works, but again, we're just going to have to wait and see. The Israeli and Palestinians have been going at it for the past 45, 50 years. My math is probably wrong there. I think it's closer to 60 or 70. But regardless, it's an issue that's going to keep popping up. And finally, let's get to Trump and the United States. I'm sure all of you hear about it plenty, and I know I say that a lot, but it's probably true. So I'll just do a quick run through of things. I do have several things to get through though. So again, if you've heard enough about Trump and heard enough about the United States, you can feel free to tune out right now. But anyway, so first of all, the GOP's Healthcare Act is really struggling to get through Congress. It's passed a couple important hurdles getting through some committees, especially the Ways and Means Committee. That was a big hurdle it had to take. It's gotten some amendments on the way through, but there are still serious concerns that it won't pass and will likely struggle to get past a floor vote. Many people are still divided on this bill. Republicans can't even get behind it, and Democrats have been uniform in voting against it. Trump has signaled that he is willing to negotiate with Congress on certain aspects of the bill, but this could prove a lengthy endeavor for Republicans and the Trump administration, similar to the Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act spectacle that happened in 2011 and 2012, which led to a lot of the hatred for the bill, because the longer the bill takes to pass, the more people can find holes to attack and to bring it down. So this will likely be a common story for the next few months, and you're probably going to be tired of hearing about it by the time it finally either passes or fails. Perhaps the bigger news coming out of the Trump administration this week, though, was the revised budget plan that they came out with. This has been greeted with severe criticism from both sides of the aisle. Democrats hate the bill, and a lot of Republicans do too. It slashes a lot of programs for the poor, like vouchers and vouchers for housing, although those may be kept after the initial review of it, as well as programs like Meals on Wheels and other programs that help the poor. It also targets common Republican targets like the National Endowment for Arts and PBS and NPR, but those will likely be safe at the end. Those have been under attack by conservatives for decades now, and they will always be. It does, however, propose a $54 billion increase to the military still. This would be on top of the already $600 billion spent on the military. The military budget already takes up 60% of the United States discretionary budget. This budget's probably dead on arrival. The budget that Republicans will send to Trump will probably look absolutely nothing like the budget sent to Trump, but this is just more and more division in the Republican Party and more of a struggle between the Trump administration and establishment Republicans in Congress to agree on really anything. It basically cuts every cabinet except for Veterans Affairs, every cabinet position, department, except for the military, Veterans Affairs, and that's really about it. It cuts the EPA, it cuts the State Department, it cuts all that, so it's a heavy cut, but again, it likely won't pass, and it's likely going to be very different by the time it does reach Trump's desk. President Trump has also refused to back down from his claims of wiretapping by the Obama administration amidst denial from both heads of the Senate Intelligence Committees and the House Intelligence Committees. They both refuted the claims. The FBI has refuted the claim. The former CIA director has refuted the claim. The current FBI director, James Comey, has refuted the claim. Barack Obama has refuted the claim. And there is no evidence that it actually happened, but he's still standing by the claim. In a meeting with Angela Merkel, Trump made a comment that they had both been wiretapped in a weird sort of joking manner. That's really it. She looked flustered by it and confused. And he also refused to shake her hand during a photo op, which again, honestly, this is just more confusing than anything to me. I don't know why. I have no speculation on it. I'm just confused. He also made a comment that Germany needed to pull their weight in NATO, and Germany has responded by basically saying that they do, and they're not going to spend more money. And finally, the last piece of news is the second immigration bill has been blocked yet again by the courts, and it's likely after seeing this that it's just not going to happen. Trump's comments about it being a Muslim ban have been referenced now in the court case. So it's clear that they are using his words of calling it a Muslim ban as part of the reason for calling it unconstitutional, because it is not legal to ban a religion from entering the United States. It is legal to ban a country but not a religion, which is what they're trying to word the executive orders as. But unfortunately for the Trump administration, the words he used on the campaign trail are coming back to haunt him, because it is clear to the judges and to the court system that this is a Muslim ban. Even with the removal of the protection for religious minorities, the wording before this executive order in the context of the event, it's clear that it's targeting Muslims. So it's likely not going to get through unless the Trump administration can find a very sympathetic court. And so with that, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you tune in again Wednesday. Have a good day.